here. Thanks for having us. Thank you for your service. I was invited here to share a couple of thoughts, remarks, observations, and experiences from my service. So I came with a few anecdotes. First of all, growing up in the United States, I grew up on a healthy diet, not necessarily intentionally, it just happens in America. There are numerous military movies about Vietnam, World War II, whatever. I never became a military buff or anything like that, but I did, as a result of that exposure, have a certain understanding or what I thought would be a typical military experience. And throughout that, those movies I'm sure many of you are all familiar with the scene of the drill sergeant barking at the soldier who enthusiastically receives a command to jump. And how does he respond? How high? Right? It's a little different in Israel. Well, posed with the exact same question by the commander to a soldier, at least when I was there, rather than with that same enthusiastic gusto to jump however high it was that would please the commander, you might rather hear a probing question, like, really, why? And so I really had no preparation for my military service, and it was actually somewhat of a semi-spontaneous decision. Rabbi Weinblatt and Rabbi Weinblatt are my parents. So I grew up, my mom's Israeli, and I grew up in a home that filled with love of Israel and Judaism and knowledge of our history and our people, and it's something that I identified with as well along the way. And never really had a thought to serve in the Army, and eventually I was invited to come lead a birthright trip when that had first started in early 2000. And I said, great, let's do it. Every other trip that I ever took to Israel was filled with excitement and enthusiasm to get to Israel. It's a place I love very much. And in this particular experience, I was very busy running around shuttling people on the bus, off the bus. You're late, brush your teeth, comb your hair, whatever, And so it was really like a job, and I hadn't had a moment to really appreciate where I was and the gravity and the beauty of what Birthright was becoming and what it was and what it is today. And we had gotten to this mountain, this hill on the top of the Golan where you could see Damascus, Syria, when it was a little less civil war-y. But nonetheless, you still could, it was like right there. And as we got off the bus, I looked over at my group, and they're all holding cameras and water bottles, and they're in sandals and shorts, and everybody's having a great time. And not thinking anything of it, as we approached this little outpost where we can see Damascus, we come across this group of soldiers who were in the middle of a military training exercise where they had slept very little over the past several days. And you come across them, and they're in full military gear. They got all their equipment on, some 50 pounds or whatever. They got everything they need over there. But you could see in their eyes just how tired they were. And some of these gentlemen were just leaning over on the posts. Some were just sitting, and some were just flat out lying down, catching just a few moments of sleep because they could, and they had that brief moment. And when I looked at my group and where I was coming from, and this is the two similar peer groups in age-wise, at these soldiers, I automatically was stricken with a sense of guilt and grief, in the sense that Israel's a place that I cared about and I care about so deeply. If I care so much about it and this is what it's required, I shouldn't be one of those people who just comes. It's not just a vacation place. And so I basically, at that moment, decided that this was something I was going to do. And shortly after I'd come home, 9/11 had happened, and that really cemented it for me. So this is, all the same thing. And it's always been an interesting experience that I look back upon. And I get asked occasionally whether or not I ever doubted my decision. First of all, I have all my limbs, so I'm pretty excited about that. So that was the biggest box I had to check. Throughout the training, it was extremely difficult. I'm sure you all can attest to it too. You wore boots all the time. It was hot. It was raining. It was cold. When it would rain outside, you couldn't come inside. Not like when you're a civilian, you just grab an umbrella and come inside. There was, you would eat canned tuna, which over and over again for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm out of the Army, I guess probably about 15 years now at this point, and just now I'm starting to open up to the idea of eating canned tuna again. So it was, you know, the training was extremely grueling, and then once you got to the front lines, it was actually even harder. When I served, it was the height of the Second Intifada. And so we were constantly running around, we were very busy, we were constantly on call. There was a few moments where we did get to sleep. We were in full gear, and it's probably like in a bunker or in some other hot room without air conditioning. So nothing was like easy or fun, and also friends didn't come home from the front line, so there were many perspectives. The good news was that there was lots and lots of hummus and schnitzel, so that really carried me through, and as a result of all that, I did not regret my service. But really, you know, there was another experience that I had once in the training where we had a very grueling long hike, and I'm sure these gentlemen went through it as well, and it's called the Masa, and you put on all your gear, and you go on a trek. And they can be long as 45 kilometers, it can be longer, it can be shorter. Each one is really hard because you haven't done one that hard yet. And in this particular story, and somehow it became that whenever we would have this type of trek, it would always rain the night before. So you would be stepping, one step would equal 3 steps, and you've got the equipment on your back, and so it was extra hard. And we had this moment when we were like in the desert training somewhere, God knows where, and it's long, it's hard, you're sweating through your equipment, and it's hot, and we go, we're probably like 1,000 soldiers deep. We're like three or four people next to each other, and then just, you know, rows all around. And my group was kind of a little bit towards the back, and we cut this corner. And I had this experience that, like, in this moment of difficulty, thinking about, you know, where we came from historically. We were a people without a land, without an army, and for so long. And my uncle just mentioned this to me the other day. He pointed out that it's very sad, obviously, when we lose a soldier. Historically, we've always lost people, unfortunately. But the difference today is that it's for a cause. It's for sovereignty. And yesterday, it was a pogrom for nothing. And so I think when I was going on this hike here, on this trek, I had that context of that history and just how remarkable it was to look around and see this standing army to protect our future and our nation. And so it was, so in this moment of difficulty, I look up, we're turning the corner, and this little, like, beat-up white car starts, like, honking as an encouragement, effusively, and repeatedly honking the horn, like, to encourage us. And then out comes, like, this huge, like, Israeli flag with a Jewish star on it, and I had this little tear come down. So there was many, many moments that really just kind of kept me going, and it was something I would never trade for again. And I'll wrap up and thank you, and it's a great project you all are doing. Thank you, Ariana, and Ivans, and Darrell, thank you very much. We're here to